Hi, Bryte Church. Wanted to talk about a different kind of a topic today, and it's as I was preparing, I was thinking, what comes to your mind when you think of grieving or mourning? I know all of us have experienced a lot of just grief and loss, perhaps during this last couple of months or year and a half, and what do we think when we think of grieving? Do we think of crying and weeping and spending a long time just, in just a very down condition? Or perhaps do we think of weakness and weakness of faith, perhaps? And I realize that many of us don't know how to properly grieve. In growing up in the Russian culture, we're taught to be strong and not show weakness. That don't let people see that your emotions, or don't let people realize that you're going through. Just power through it and you'll be fine. But when we experience loss or death in the family, or just maybe a relationship that didn't go well or didn't work out, or maybe even receive some bad news of a job loss or something like that, we think that the Christian thing is to be strong and to power through it, to keep praying and know that God has a plan, or that showing grief might mean that we don't believe in God, or that our faith is weak, and we don't trust that maybe this was part of God's plan somehow. And what happens is, when we have those thoughts, we also begin to put them on other people as well. That when someone loses a family member, we might say, or we might think, well, don't you believe that they're in heaven? Why are you crying for so long? Or why are you taking so long to process this? Or when someone experiences a different kind of loss, perhaps a job loss or something like that, or something happened in their family, we think, well, don't you know that God works all things for His good? Why are you so upset about this? And what's good to know is that Jesus actually talks about grief and mourning, and he says to the Sermon on the Mount to the people around them in Mathew 5:4, and that's the verse that we want to look at today, is he says, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." And he's letting people know people will have grief. He's letting the crowd know there will be grief, and people will need someone to comfort them. And it's interesting that grief doesn't go away by itself. That we think that if we just power through and push it away, it'll make itself known somehow. And part of the healing process is to let the grief out. Even Jesus experienced grief and mourning when his friend Lazarus died. It says he wept. So people are different, and most people, some take longer to process things like this. Some might trust God more and continue quicker. Some might need more care, more people around them. And some people are okay with just talking to God about these things. But when we think of grief, I think we need to make sure that we understand that mourning and grieving and experiencing this thing is not a sign of weakness of faith, but it's okay to grieve or have a season of grieving or mourning because it's in the Bible. Job had it, David had it, and all of these people who talk about having difficulties, they're asking God to send people or asking God for help in it. And the goal is also not to experience that by yourself, to invite God and invite God's people to come around you and give you that comfort, because He promises comfort, especially in this verse. And this is just such a good reminder, I think, for all of us in the seasons that we're going through, even in the last couple of days and couple of weeks. We've been getting just text messages of things going on and people needing prayer. And I realize that a lot of people don't know how to act in these situations because they portray them as weakness. But my wife, she loves to say this, and I think it's so perfect for this. It says, sometimes you just need a good cry. and that is biblical, because Jesus even spent time crying when his friend died. And it wasn't a sign of weakness. It was him showing that this is someone who he cared for and someone who was important in his life. So I hope this encourages you when you experience a loss, or maybe a season of loss, or maybe a season of grieving, to invite God into that and to let God be in that season with you, because he promises comfort. He says that he will comfort those who are mourning. And the goal for all of us is to say, like Job, the Lord gave and the Lord took away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. So I hope that encourages you guys. And if you're experiencing a season of grieving or mourning perhaps right now, I pray that you would reach out to someone and not make it seem like a sign of weakness to let others come around you, to let others come pray with you, or just have some tea with you, to spend some time talking and crying with people, because it's biblical and it's in the Bible. So I'll read Matthew 5:4 again as we finish. And it says, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." God bless you guys.